Hey y'all, in this video I want to show you how to cut the book board down to size for making any books. So I'm about to teach a in-person class, and so I need to cut down a bunch of board for my students. So we're actually going to be making some codex books in this size. So I've got to cut board down for this book size. But so here's a little trick that I do. I make a lot of books in the same sizes to sell. So I made myself templates. So I definitely, like, if you really get into bookbinding and you find you're making a lot of the same sizes over and over again, I totally encourage you to make a template that has all the information written on it that you need. I even have my holes marked so that I'm not constantly grabbing the ruler and having to measure every time. The information on this card, this is just the back of a sketch pad. I actually keep all the backs of my sketch pads because that is good board. You can actually cut that down and make books from that board. It's not, some pads have good thick backing and some have a little thinner. This is a little thinner, but no big deal. It's perfect for using as a template. So it has all the information on it that I need to make a Coptic book this size. And this size book is, it's 5 3/4 across by 8.5 high. Now, I also, so that's the size that I'm going to cut the boards today. The benefit also of having a template or even just your text block, this is my text block that's going inside of the book, is I can take this and figure out a good cutting configuration because I don't want to waste this board. I want to maximize this board. So I want to cut as many Coptic covers out of it as I can. So generally what I do is I take this and I figure out, okay, I can fit one here. I can fit one. So that would be one book I could cut out of it. I could cut a second book out of it, but I don't have enough to get a third book out of it. So I can only cut 3 books if I cut this way. What happens if I turn it this way? If I turn it this way, I can get 1 cover, 2 covers, which is 1 book. I can get a third. And let's see, if I go this way, I can get 2 more. So I can get 2 books and another cover for another book. So I technically am getting 2.5 books if I cut this way as opposed to this way. So of course I'm going to do that because I can get 5 instead of 4. I'll still have board left over for using to make little accordion books and stuff. So, so I know that's my configuration. So I always start, a lot of times when I'm making books, I will start with the text block. The text block is the paper that's going into the book. It's your middle. It's the middle of your book. It's all of this. So whatever this is, that determines my cover. How do you go about figuring out how big the cover should be? So if you're working with text block, you're gonna measure the width of the text block. This happens to be 5 5/8, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5 5/8. Well, I know I want the cover to be a little wider than the pages, So I'm just gonna add another 1/8 and call it 5 3/4. So I'm gonna cut the cover 5 3/4 wide. Height wise, I'm at 8.5. I actually, this is personal preference. A lot of bookmakers, they will make their covers bigger on all sides. I actually like my top and my bottom, which is actually called the head and the tail. I like that to be flush and this to have a little bit of an indentation. So because that's my personal preference, I am going to cut my height exactly 8.5 because that's what my text block is. If you want it to be a little bigger, you're just going to add a little tad. You'll probably add maybe 3/16. You could add an 1/8, or you could add a full 1/4 of an inch, which will give you about a 1/16 on, no, that would give you an 1/8, about an 1/8 on each side. Totally personal preference, okay? So that's just to let you know how you kind of get around the board. The board itself, this is the board that I buy. It's made by Lineco. It's just called Binder's Board. It comes in a 4-pack, and it does have different thicknesses. This is the 0.067 inches. So it's super thin, but it's also super thick. So this is one of the thinner ones that I like to use for my students because it's just easy for them to punch through. If they've got to cut it themselves, it's just easier to cut. They do make like a 0.087, I believe, and there's one even thicker, which is just crazy town to me, crazy town thick. So I like to work with the 0.067 and the 0.087 board. Most art supply stores carry this. You can also buy Bookbinder's Board in giant sheets. When I was mass producing books years ago, I would buy the giant sheets. It's a little cumbersome to deal with these days. So I don't mass produce books like I was. So the smaller Binder's Board, this is just so easy to use at home. It's easy to use in a home studio. If you've got a giant studio and tons of space and you plan to mass produce books, I recommend you go ahead and get the bigger Binder's Board. In the industry, it is known as Davey Board, which is Davey board. So Davey, like the name Davey. So let's get to it. I always double, triple, quadruple check myself. So I'm checking myself here, though I know actually I'm cutting the lengthwise. So I think it's 8.5. That's what my board is telling me. It's 8.5, 8.5. I'm just measuring 8.5. So what I do, I use a red pen for this. The board actually has little just specks and spots on it, none of which is red. So I never use a pencil. I don't even use a black pen. I use red because it's so easy to see. And so I just line my ruler up at one end. I eyeball to make sure like this space is straight, that my ruler's not tilted. If it's tilted, it's going to give you an incorrect mark. So it's just eyeball, and your eyeballs, they get a whole lot better the more you eyeball stuff. I know that sounds funny, but it really is true. The more you measure, the more you look, the more you cut, the better you get. It's just repetition, practice. I make multiple marks all the way down the board at the 8.5. And I'm actually going to double check my top one because it looks off to me, but it's not off. It's good. All right, I shall continue. All the way down. And I'm just going to the end and marking one here. Okay. You probably cannot see my marks. I can see them, so just trust me. They are there. T-square. T-square is super important for this process because it's not, your ruler's really not going to budge. It's going to keep everything straight, in line, and in place. So let me I just want to push this up a tad so you can see I'm way down here. So my T-square is butt up against my self-healing cutting mat. I am lining the red marks that I made up with my ruler. Where'd you go? I lost a mark. Here we are. So I am just eyeballing. There we are. I'm lined up there. I'm here. I'm here. All my marks. I can see each one. I am ready to cut now. So I'm putting all my body weight into this ruler right now. I'm cutting with a utility knife. A utility knife is the thing you need for cutting this board. Do not use an X-Acto blade. The blade itself, it's not strong enough. I have snapped them. This board is tough stuff, and I've snapped. I've actually had the tips break off and fly off, which is totally dangerous. Don't do that. Get yourself a utility knife, utility blades, because it takes multiple passes. So I'm coming up to the top. I'm putting all my body weight into this ruler, and I'm making a pass. And I'm just going to keep passing until I cut all the way through. I am giving some pressure into the knife. I'm putting my muscle into this. And you just take your time. There's no rush. Keep cutting. Cutting bookboard is, I call it a labor of love. It is truly a labor of love because it just takes a lot of oomph to get it cut. I feel like I'm through. I'm almost through. I'm gonna pull my ruler away because my cut is so deep. I know I'm almost through. Here we are, this last pass. Except for my little end. All right, there we go. Okay, so this is the height of my book. I'm gonna set this one aside. We'll cut that one in a few. So I'm going to double check where's my template. I'm double checking myself, making sure looks good. I am good. So now what's my next cut? My next cut is 5 3/4. It's telling me here 5 3/4, and I'm measuring out 5 3/4. So same thing. Red pen. Close this. Don't be like me and leave it open all the time. Close it just in case. Okay, 5 3/4. So I'm marking 5 3/4. A little off. 5 3/4. And 3/4. Okay. The other thing I like to do, just as a check to myself, is I just set the paper there and it looks good. So you can continue to use your T-square. Sometimes I switch over to just a cork back ruler. I'll just show you what that's like, because I kind of don't need the big one. I'm putting now my whole palm is on the board and I'm holding the ruler down with all my mice, right? And it's the same thing. You're just cutting. You're just passing slow. Pressure into the knife just a little bit. Not as much pressure as you're putting with your ruler hand. There we go. Okay. I want to tell you why a metal ruler. You want the metal ruler because this is super sharp and you're running it, you're literally running it against it. Wooden rulers, plastic rulers, this will totally cut them. The knife could get stuck in it, which is going to set you off. It's never going to stick. It's always just going to glide against the metal. So that's why I tell everyone and my students to use a metal. I'm going to cut one more cover so that I have my pear. I'm doing it at 5 3/4. 5 3/4. Checking, good, and here we go. What happened there? There we are. Okay. Had a little snafu up there, but it all looks good. Yeah, we're good. All right, so I've got 2 covers down, many more to go, which I will not bore y'all with. But you get the idea on how to cut down the board. So supplies, T-square, ruler, both metal, red pen, utility knife, and your Davey board, and that's about it. So enjoy. Happy bookbinding.